who did a fantastic job of helping put this all together, especially chase witnesses around literally nationwide. So I asked them, thank them a lot for everything they did. Also, Senate press staff and Evan Bergwell and his team did a terrific job. And also my admins, Sabrina Wise, and everyone else who also has participated within this endeavor that we did. Got to remember one thing about all study committees: we start off in the summertime, and that's actually vacation time, so it really takes a lot of time out of everyone's schedule. And also thank our state senators who are on this particular committee: our Senate Pro Tem Larry Walker, Senator Kenya Weeks, Senator Chuck Hefsteller, and also I believe we got on Zoom Senator Ben Watson. And want to also appreciate everything that they've done. I don't know about them, but this has been one of the busiest off seasons I've had, so I appreciate their participation also. So when we look at the recommendations that we have, and I can kind of go through these with the state senators and hopefully kind of move this forward, is these are basically general recommendations. As we always would say, the devil is in the details, and the details about how exactly some of these programs will be established, such as, for instance, when you look at question become necessarily what type of caregiving services might apply, how you actually would produce a tax credit, what would be the income level if you did a tax credit. Those are all details that the legislation would actually have to work through. So when we talk about caregiving services and we start talking about, and you'll see what I'm articulating in a minute, and we start discussing, tax credits and things of that nature, well, what services would apply, or what income levels would be subject to it, or what type of recipient would actually be eligible for that. Those are things that actually will be worked out within the details of the legislation. But I can go through these right quick. Our first one is expand the types of caregiving services that qualify under the existing Georgia's paid parental leave program to include other familiar relationships. As we are aware right now today under current law, we have a situation where our state employees and also our Board of Education employees, they are entitled to parental leave. This would basically keep that law within intact, but also try to extend that particular law to include caregiving services. As I stated before, now exactly what services would that apply to, that would have to be worked out within the legislation. But that gives us our general recommendation that we have a law in the books now that says for our state employees and says for our Board of Education employees, they do have parental leave, that this would actually also expand to caregiving services. And as we stated, now what services would apply, et cetera, those are things that would be worked out within any particular legislation. Our second one that we have here is increase the Georgia Family Care Act, which also sometimes is called the 5-day rule, to 30 days, with all of the program aspects remaining the same. So once again, as we know for our private sector employees, we give them basically have sick time. We allow them to have 5 days off. This would extend that for caregiving services to make it actually 30 days. Now, what are some of the questions that would have to be addressed within the legislation? Would it be a continuous 30 days, a contiguous 30 days, or would it have to be broken up? Also, once again, as we stated, all other aspects of that current law would remain intact, meaning that you would have to have that sick time already accrued, which is the big part of our current law today. So what we're really doing is recognizing that from a family care standpoint, caregiving standpoint, that 5 days would probably be on the low side if you're just talking about some of the things that we've heard. Really, a person needs 24-hour care that could last for months and months. This tries to ease that burden just a little bit. And of course, when we start talking about the days, this is, of course, what our general kind of what we really would want. But those days, of course, would have to be negotiated within legislation. It certainly could actually go down, but 30 days is probably your top ceiling that you would actually look for, if possible. I think one of the big issues there would be, would that be a continuous 30 days would be one of the issues. But as also stated, it is just a continuation of current law, which that person has to already have that accrued sick time to even apply for that. Number 3 is amend the existing qualified caregiver expense credit or creating a new income tax credit for the purchase of caregiving related goods and services up to $1,000 per year for taxpayer for up to 3 years. So we know the current tax credit that we have in existence today, I believe, is $150. This would actually increase that. There was legislation introduced last year to increase it to $500. Because of the type of increase that we're looking at, once again, these are some of the issues that would have to be discussed that I've kind of anticipate will be discussed within the legislation. For instance, when you're talking about going that type of hike, would that apply to every single aspect of caregiving services? Maybe you would do it only strictly for maybe dementia services, for instance, because that is more paramount. So you might look at it from that standpoint. Also, because you're talking about $1,000, could you actually limit that and put a floor on and a ceiling on the income levels that could apply to that? So because you're actually increasing it to that amount, would a person who's necessarily making $150,000 actually qualify for the $1,000 too? Those are things that that would be looked at within the legislation because of the fact that you are having this increase. So we may not be an increase for every single person that's providing those services, may not be an increase for every service because of the dollar amount that it is increased to, but it gives you a general recommendation and a general feel of that we understand that the $150 is probably too low of a ceiling. Let's go up on that. And then, of course, once again, what type of services will qualify and any income type levels that we might want to limit it to, those things would also be discussed and worked out through the legislation. Then we look at number 4, which is encourage the creation of more jobs dedicated to infrastructure caregivers, instructing caregivers on the medical and nursing tasks that they will perform at home by creating the Caregivers Jobs Tax Credit Program that would encourage the creation or maintenance of jobs that are dedicated to educating caregivers. And this one basically deals with the fact that, as we're aware, that currently right now, when we have current law that says when you bringing somebody home, you're kind of supposed to be instructed about how caregiving takes place. But those instructions right now, and it's only because of the simple fact, you may not have enough people. Sometimes those instructions may not be as thoroughly given as one might like. And you also have to remember that what you're actually doing is you're sending somebody home to be a nurse or a caregiver, or basically somebody who's going to be taking over the medical profession to some extent. So maybe an hour just sitting there is not enough. So the question becomes, how do we try to encourage more actual economic activity or more jobs within that particular area? So that's what we're really trying to get to. And so as we currently have job tax credits today, we do it within a tier system. As we know, we also limit necessarily the credit. I believe some credits are $3,500, some are $2,500, some are $1,500, depending on where you are. So I think some of the things that could be worked out within the legislation is that when you look at this particular type of credit, what we're trying to do is get more people within that field, and we're trying to encourage businesses to do that through a job tax credit. But when we limit it to certain counties like we do our tiers, or what we once again try to limit to income levels, etc. But what we really want to do is try to get more people within that field who can actually truly teach our persons as they take their loved one home and become caregivers, because it is such a monumental task. That's what we're trying to do, encourage more employment in that area. So we encourage employment within the manufacturing industry and other industries, also try to encourage employment in this particular area too, because we know that it's becoming a crisis situation, and you have so many people taking their loved ones home really without proper instruction. And I think the goal would be not only would that instruction necessarily just be the day that you take them home, but possibly even more instruction further down the road, because now the business would have more people to actually interact with the caregiver. So that is the goal there. Once again, the amount of the credits and things of that nature, how expensive they would be, those are things that we could have to look at. But I think this gives us our general goal that this is what we want to do. We want to encourage more people within this particular business sector. Number 5 is to establish a program to provide support for caregivers age 65 or older who provide care to individuals with dementia. And this would just be strictly a pilot program. I actually took this from another state. And the reason why it was 65 and with dementia is because it is a new program, but it's one to see how can we better services for those, number one, themselves are aging, they're 65 or older, but now you're also taking care of somebody who has dementia, a very difficult kind of task. So the question becomes, because that's so specialized, you have someone who is now in senior status, most likely taking care of a senior, but certain someone with diminished capacity, maybe we should try to find a ways to actually really kind of drill down a little bit further to try to help those folks as far as what they're doing in their caregiving services. And so that was to create just a pilot program, certainly one that's just starting to develop, and see how we can maybe improve those services for that particular narrow group. It may be a narrow group, but at the same time, dementia is one of the leading causes that causes caregiving services. So that aspect of it is large, but then we narrowed it down by saying it would only apply to those 65 or older because of the unique balance that you have there. Because then, quite frankly, you may have somebody 65 or older who now themselves possibly could be going through that type of process. So it becomes a very interesting kind of dilemma that takes place, and we want to see if we can kind of drill down that a little bit further and see what we can do to help that particular population. Number 6, encourage the state to examine the feasibility of establishing child care facilities program through targeted infrastructure grants for the construction of child care facilities. This one here is more broad, but what it's designed for is the sandwich generation. One of the things we heard about is that you have so many people now that are taking care of parents and loved ones. And to necessarily try to narrow that down, and kind of thought through this, could it be narrowed down to say, well, it only apply to kids who are 5 years old, or only apply to kids who are 6 years old or less? That becomes somewhat of a paperwork nightmare, quite frankly. What once again, then you have to look at income levels, but we tier it like we do job tax credits. It became a lot of different aspects of it, and I think the better route to go would just say, generally, let's try to just improve childcare generally, but it's really focused upon the rationale being because of this childcare situation we have with these sandwich generation folks that are taking care of their loved one and also taking care of a young kid. And we certainly could see where this could be a tremendous issue if you have a young child at home, but at the same time, especially if you're taking care of someone with a severe physical ailment, or certainly one who may have dementia, or certainly a severe mental ailment too. So that's what we're doing there, is just trying to increase that to help with that particular generation. That certainly could be narrowed down. It's just that we kind of work through it. Is it going to be age limits? Is it going to be income limits? It can be narrowed down, but I wasn't sure if those recommendations at this point could be put into this document. Once again, legislation would have to probably narrow that down. And then number 7 is encourage the Department of Aging Services further study the difficulty of structural impediments that exist for African Americans and other minorities providing caregiver services. And that basically is that onus. I didn't want to put that necessarily within the recommendation, but that onus would be on myself and others to really get with Department Division of Aging Services, and they're very amenable to this. I believe they discuss this issue too, but I think we probably need to figure out more, what are some of those impediments and how do they really impact, if at all, African American caregivers and other minority caregivers, before we necessarily can say this would be the legislation to necessarily do that. So let's kind of figure out more about that particular issue. We did have testimony on that, but let's figure out a little bit more on that issue and then make a determination potentially later exactly what type of legislation, if any, is needed at all. And I certainly think this is just an encouragement to say that they shall do it, but I think it's one to where if we have good stakeholders and bring them together, that we probably could get some better idea of exactly how to reach these communities, if it's something that the government can do or something better for the private sector, but how we can actually do that. And then also number 8 is similar, Courage Division of Aging Services and also Georgia Department of Veteran Services to get together also, once again, an encouragement factor with different stakeholders. Seems like a lot of your caregiver services for veterans may be actually completed through the Department of Veteran Services, but there are other state aspects to it too, potentially that we could provide further help. So they may have a lot of their help within the Department of Veteran Services, but then the question becomes, is there any other help that the state can also give them to improve that, especially since there are veterans? And one thing about our veterans today, even more probably than any other time other than like World War II, so many of them have actually been in combat. So we want to make sure that we actually really, surely take care of our veterans that are out there. And so, but once again, that became one that we heard testimony on it. But even with that, it seemed that there's really an intersection between the federal government and the state government, and how kind of bring those together. And I think we probably need to really kind of look at that issue a little bit more closely. So that's an encouragement to do that, and then possibly come back with legislation a little bit later on, as we kind of work through that and see what the state can do, if anything, to improve that for our veterans. With that, I'll ask my members if they have any other questions.
I do not. I have a comment.
Wait. Yes, sir. Oh, what's your number? 9.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for chairing this and bringing this important issue to us to discuss and meet on. And I think if you are dealing with trying to take care of aging parents or family members, you realize pretty quick that a lot of the resources that may be out there are kind of siloed, or you're thrown into this situation, and being just a layperson, you don't really know how to access resources. You really don't know where to turn. You end up talking to other people in the community that have gone through the same thing, and getting ideas.
That's
And
right.
so a lot of these recommendations I fully support. I think 5, 7, and 8 especially kind of speak to that, where we're trying to make sure that people are educated on what the resources are available, and there's a connectivity there, so that people can manage this. It's difficult under any circumstances, but we want our citizens to access the resources that are out there for sure. So I do commend you for the job you've done with this, and I support the majority of these recommendations. I do want to preface that by saying, in the uh, I'm going to have a hard time supporting additional tax credits, frankly, um, especially in the environment we're in, with trying to look at ways to further lower the state income tax.
Mhm.
And that's just a philosophical difference, I guess, maybe we have there. But I do want to commend you on the good job you've done with this, and
Mhm.
uh, I've learned a lot uh, by being on this. So thank you. And I don't know if you intend to ask for a motion kind of on all of them. I would prefer to, vote on them one by one, but
Mhm.
you're the chairman. So
Okay. Senator Wicks, anything?
No, I'm number 8. I do definitely concur with you, Mr. Chairman. I've been with you this whole summer and I've learned a lot, and I definitely do advocate and champion caregivers, especially my grandmother being a senior. Um, and number 8 is dear to me, especially our veterans. So the resources, but making sure that we advocate and make sure the resources are available to all of our citizens, because some people don't know the resources. And then making sure that, because our caregivers get burnt out, and making sure that the resources are available to everybody. So I thank you for championing this committee and going from there. Um, so yeah, number 8 is dear to me. And
Skip 5 days.
so I don't know if you want to do it individually or as a whole. So I'm not sure how the process does work.
Correct.
And to maximize the tax credit, because sometimes these caregivers cannot work and this is their only source of income.
Two. Just put it down to 5 days. Right.
So, Mr. Chairman, on the recommendation number 2, increase the Georgia Family Care Act's 5-day rule to 30 days, with all other program aspects remaining the same. In other words, broaden that current law to include taking care of family members, not just children, on the Family Care Act. And the current law applies to employers that have 25 or more employees. So it's still a small business that is impacted by this. And as a small business owner myself, I realize that, um, we're stretched really thin, and we're all wearing a lot of different hats at my business, because we are small, and when somebody is out, it really has a big impact, adverse impact on our ability to function at our business. And I feel like even a 25-person employer would face that same challenge. So I have concerns with extending it to 30 days. Current law is 5 days. Um, I, I don't know if there's a compromise position there, but I would not personally be able to support the 30 days. I think that puts too big a burden on our small businesses and our small employers, which are really the backbone of our economy here in Georgia. So if you would have be amenable to, cutting that back, I would be fine expanding it to, taking care of aging parents or a spouse that's, ill or whatever, but and leaving it at 5 days, or I might could support maybe 10 days or something. Again, this would obviously, all of these are recommendations, and it would be debated in committee and vetted and debated on the Senate floor too. But that's where I'm at there. And then again, I have concerns with adding any additional tax credits, which would be number 3 and 4. But the others, 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I fully support.
Is Senator Watson available? Do you have any comments?
I appreciate everybody what they have said. I concur with Senator Walker, and so I really just want to say ditto from that standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you so much, then. 2 with 5 days.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So anything else, Senator Wicks? Okay. Let's see if we get a consensus here. And what I'd like to do is have a motion to approve, which would be number 1, recommendation number 1, number 2, but with 5 days. That would change that from 30 days to 5 days. The Georgia 5-day Act rule, which would allow private sector employees still to receive caregiving services, but it would be to just 5 days. And then also number 5, establish a pilot program, support caregivers age 65 or older, provide care to individuals with dementia. Number 6, encourage the state to examine the feasibility of establishing a child care facilities program through targeted infrastructure grants for the construction of child care facilities. Number 7, encourage the Division of Aid and Services to further study the difficulties or structural impediments that exist for African Americans and other minorities providing caregiver services. And number 8, encourage the Division of Aid and Services to collaborate with the Georgia Department of Veterans Affairs to further study and determine how veterans and their caregivers can better access caregiving services while having to navigate through the intersection of federal and state laws with regard to veteran services. So that would be number 1. And then number 2 had a structural change to it, which would be 5 days. Make that 5 days, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8. If I could have a motion to move those forward.
I'll second it.
I do rule already, but so if you changed it down to 5 days, it would stay the same.
So why you just do 2?
I'd be
Are you
fine with.
talking about expanding, like, type of family caregiver?
Right.
That quality.
Mhm.
Okay. Instead of increase, it would be amend the Georgia Family Caregiver
To include.
Act 5-day rule to
Include.
include.
That's correct. That's what
other
we're doing.
family-
That's correct. That's what we're doing. Yes, that's what we're doing. Yes, we're good.
And I do want to say that does not limit employers that want to offer more than the 5 days. Obviously, they're free to do that. It just requires them to do at least 5 days, and then it's expanding the eligibility of the situation to take care of familial, I don't know the right word, but other family.
Correct.
So I think Senator Wicks made a motion, and I would second that.
Right. All in favor? Please say aye. Aye.
Uh,
All right. And Senator Watts?
I said I also. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That passes. Thank you guys for everything. I think we've done a good job here. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting for today and our study committee overall. And I want to thank everybody that's here today, and thank everybody that's online, and thank everyone that participated within this program. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, man.